Greetings. Herbal Materia Medica series, strictly medicinal seeds, September 2017. Speaking about Spilanthes, the herb Spilanthes, Acmella oleracea. It is in the family the asters, the Asteraceae. This plant is hardy to zones 10 to 12. Otherwise, it's grown as an annual, and it requires about 120 days to maturity. So when planting it from seed, which is the recommended method, then starting early on in the spring in the greenhouse, growing the plants on in pots, and then transplanting out to the garden when the soil has really warmed up is the recommended procedure. Spilanthes is a heavy feeder, and if you heap compost around the plants after transplant, they will respond accordingly and make lots and lots of these fisheye shaped flowers that occur at the ends of these sort of rubbery stalks that come up out of the slightly bronzed leaves of this creeping plant. Spilanthes is known as the toothache plant. It's also known as pericress. That would be in reference to its South American origins, quite likely. That being in Spanish, pericress. For the use as in soups, you can definitely cut the young plant and use it in soups. And in fact, it's a culinary treat in both South America, Central America, and in Portugal and in the Portuguese East African colonies. So it's also known as Sancho buttons, electric buttons, in reference to its very bright coloration and also the electrifying response that one gets orally when chewing the fresh bud, which can be likened to an intensely stimulating experience. You can sort of feel the antiseptic activity of the plant, and it also stimulates the fauces, creating profuse salivation, and so it's known as a sialagogue, a plant that produces a saliva on contact. Then this activity is mainly due to the compound class known as the isobutyl amides, and they are similar to the isobutyl amides that are found in other members of the aster family, specifically Echinacea. The isobutyl amides are responsible for the tingling reaction in good Echinacea and in Spilanthes as well. This has led practitioners to use the two plants in combination, or as a course of dosage where Echinacea is taken and then half an hour later 20 drops of or so of the fresh tincture of Spilanthes is taken, and this tends to increase the effects of the Echinacea and is particularly useful in treating acute conditions of pain, including toothache and also viral pathogens, including the cold and associated earaches in young children. This can be very useful to have a regimen which quickly turns around an earache, because earaches are so very uncomfortable for the young ones and worrisome to the older ones, who wonder if they can really give something that will ameliorate the symptoms and kill the pain. Spilanthes is tropical perennial. It's native to Brazil, and arguably it may be native to Africa as well. I'm speaking to the possibility that Spilanthes populations were large and diverse in Gondwana land, and after the continents split, then it's possible that we had relict populations on either side of the Atlantic. And in this case, this would perhaps explain the presence of different kinds of Spilanthes on the African continent, as well as in Brazil, where they're probably native. This particular kind that has the bicolored buzz button is actually the result of human selection. I didn't know that for many years. I thought this was the base kind. But the base kind is actually different species known as Acmella alba, which has a monocolored yellow flower. So normally one would use the original type in herbal medicine, but when the plant was first introduced into the herbal medicine scene in the U.S., at least in the 60s, we really only knew about this one cultivar, and this is the one we used, and so it's become somewhat of a standard. It really is a nice plant too, and I certainly love it dearly, and actually love it most of all the different Spilanthes species that I do know. Then the traditional usage of the plant is as a stimulant, a tonic, a dentifrice for treating earache, gum disease, also Lyme's disease and malaria. So it does seem to have an activity against spirochetes and a specific affinity for killing off spirochetes in the human body. So any disease that has to do with the proliferation of spirochete pathogens in the human body might well be treated by using Spilanthes, perhaps along with other kinds of herbal regimens. Then that would include malaria and the malarial spirochete, and probably in that case your combination herb would be sweet anise or Artemisia annua, and then also Lyme's disease. And I think that your combination herb with that could be something like chameleon plant, the Houtonia cordata. So you see that you have these kind of natural combinations of herbs coming up in, especially when you're thinking about an herb that has a very direct and powerful activity versus a gentler herb that has a wider base of reason for its activity and is often considered to be more tonifying to the human body instead of killing of pathogens. So when you're planting Spilanthes, it's actually gratifyingly easy to start from seed. The seeds come up in about 10 days. As mentioned previously, you would grow them on in a greenhouse and plant them out in the spring and at a spacing of 1 to 2 feet apart. I hope that this rendition of some of my information on Spilanthes has been helpful to you, and I would encourage you to grow the plant. We have plants available in season, and we also have seed of many different types available at strictlymedicinalseeds.com. Cheers.